Matthew graduated from a top national university and brags about his career at a major company, constantly hurling insults at me. It seems he feels he did me a favor by marrying me because we had a child on the way. Around the time I was 9 months pregnant, we were invited as a couple to Matthew's cousin's wedding. We stood up to greet Matthew's uncle and his wife as they came to our table, and together with the parents-in-law, we offered our congratulations. After the uncle and his wife moved to the next table, I sat down only to have Matthew suddenly splash beer on me. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak, and Matthew yelled at me. "Isn't it common sense for the wife to remain standing?" "Matthew, really? Don't you even know that much? Guess it's because you're uneducated." Mother-in-law Sarah quickly pulled out a lace handkerchief and wiped my face. As I absent-mindedly watched the drops falling from my bangs, I felt a pierce of anger rising. I couldn't stand it anymore. I didn't care that he was the father of my child. I decided to reveal various things in front of the relatives and hurt his unnecessarily high pride. I'm Dorothy, 42 years old. I met Matthew through work, and he was as charming as an actor. He was competent and considerate, and his gentle, calm manner of speaking was pleasing to the ear. After I developed a good impression of him, he asked me out, and I immediately said yes. A year later, after several days of feeling unwell, I took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. Since we were dating with marriage in mind, I thought Matthew would be happy to hear the news. Instead, he frowned and answered indifferently, "Do you want to get married?" "Okay, then." There was no proposal, and I felt secretly disappointed. Considering my condition, we decided against a grand wedding, and instead greeted each other's families before registering our marriage at the city hall and starting our life together. Though we were newlyweds, neither of us was young, and with my morning sickness, I had no expectations for a lovey-dovey life. However, I was still taken aback by how different our lives turned out to be. Matthew, who had passed the entrance exams to one of the top universities in the country and graduated straight through, was always full of confidence, partly due to his good looks. "I want you to quit your job and dedicate yourself to the home. My salary should be more than enough for us, right?" Before we married, he said this, so I resigned. Or rather, my morning sickness was so bad at the time, I didn't believe I could balance both work and home life. After marriage, his demeaning behavior towards me became more apparent. One day, after using all my energy to make breakfast and hang laundry due to severe nausea, I spent the whole day lying on the sofa. When Matthew came home from work and saw the dust on the floor, he lashed out at me. "You've been lounging around the house all day, and you haven't even cleaned?" "I'm sorry, I've been too sick to get up. Could you please buy something from the supermarket next door for dinner?" "Don't be ridiculous. You want me to eat pre-made food? What if I get sick? I'll give you 30 minutes to make dinner." Terrified by Matthew's anger, with veins bulging on his forehead, I had no choice but to comply, moving back and forth between the toilet and kitchen to prepare the meal. He complained about the food I made. "Mom's cooking is much better. Can't even prepare a decent meal, and you wonder why you missed your chance to get married." Unable to even hold a knife properly, he said such awful things, even though he himself was marrying for the first time at his age. It was always like this, being complained about. On another day, when I could hardly eat anything due to morning sickness, he said, "I go to work even with a hangover, but you get to lie down at home? Must be nice." Since I never talked back, Matthew's behavior grew increasingly arrogant. His arrogance knew no bounds. Of course, I was grateful for Matthew working hard every night, sometimes even going on business trips. But I was thoroughly fed up with being mocked at every opportunity. Once, I managed to budget our limited finances and got my health back to manage the household chores properly. He started mocking my educational background. Matthew loves watching quiz shows on TV, mocking the participants gleefully whenever they make a mistake. Since the airing time overlaps with when I use the kitchen, I often end up being quizzed, and it makes me feel down. He especially enjoys it when students from his alma mater compete against students from other universities.
Hey, did you get that last question?
No.
That's why people who haven't been to college are no good. You should start over from elementary school.
He looks proud when his answers are correct.
Anyone who gets such an easy question wrong has a brain less than that of a monkey.
It's true that Matthew is smart, but the pleasure he takes in looking down on me spoils his brilliance with his nasty character.
I'd be in trouble if our kids turn out to be as dumb as you.
He said that with a mocking smile, and I had no desire to respond. Moreover, Matthew is quite stingy. He gets mad if I buy a snack for around $1, yet he goes to bars claiming it's for work or indulges in expensive wine when he's tired from work. I reluctantly dipped into my savings from before I was married to buy cake or meet with friends and my sister at a cafe while Matthew was at work. You've got yourself a weird man. I vent while having lunch with my sister Melissa. Melissa looked at me with sympathetic eyes. She's constantly traveling for work, so she hasn't yet met Matthew. Unlike me, she's outspoken. He was considerate and had a wonderful smile when we were dating. As soon as you got married, his true colors showed. Hearing this makes me lose the desire to get married. Melissa shook her head, and then, as if she remembered something, said, By the way, I told you there was a reunion back home the other day, right?
Yeah, at a local hotel.
After the reunion, we were drinking with the usual crowd when a guy came up to us.
Oh?
Melissa and her friends are glamorous beauties. This guy was handsome but arrogant. Holding a mocha, he said, If you were my woman, you could live in luxury. I'd buy you a condo or anything.
Wow, must be rich.
He had a wedding ring on his left hand, yet said that. So I asked him if he was married. Guess what he said?
What did he say?
My brow furrowed. My wife is living off me. I can cheat, spend a fortune on women, and she can't say a word, he said. Ridiculous, right? We laughed it off with my friends, turned him down, and left the place.
Which era does he think he's living in?
Really, though? I thought to myself that it sounded exactly like something Matthew would say. But I didn't want to worry Melissa, so I kept it to myself. Lately, being with Matthew feels suffocating, wanting to assert his superiority over me, in more than just academics. He started to mock me like this, laughing.
You know I married you because we had a baby on the way. You should be thrown away. I'm being kind by providing for you. You should worship me more. You're not grateful enough.
Ah, am I like a cat or a dog that's been taken in? Yeah, those animals are probably treated much better. Thinking this makes me feel miserably pitiful. Was all the kindness during our dating days a lie? But maybe Matthew will change once the baby is born. Holding on to that faint hope, I couldn't bring myself to consider divorce. As the 9-month mark approached, we were invited to Matthew's cousin's wedding as a couple. My condition had stabilized, and since it was at a nearby hotel, we decided to attend. I was looking forward to the splendid occasion and went with excitement. When the ceremony began, I was completely captivated by the bride's radiant beauty standing next to the groom. How beautiful! I wished to wear a dress like that someday. Then Matthew laughed mockingly next to me.
Better not. It'll just make your ugly face stand out more.
He whispered at a volume low enough that the parents-in-law at our table couldn't hear. There's no need to say it like that.
Maybe if you lose a lot of weight and get plastic surgery and look 20 years younger, then I might let you wear one.
While listening to the wedding march, I bit my lip and looked down. Why do I have to be spoken to this way? Unaware of my sinking mood, the ceremony proceeded smoothly. After the toast, it was time for the bride and groom to change outfits. The atmosphere in the venue remained pleasant as tables started engaging in small talk. Soon after, Matthew's uncle and his wife came to our table to greet us. We stood up to welcome them, returning their congratulations. After the uncle and his wife moved to the next table, I followed my parents-in-law and sat down. The moment I sat down, something cold splashed on my face. I had been doused with beer. I was so shocked I couldn't speak, and Matthew yelled at me.
A wife is supposed to stand. Isn't that common sense?
Matthew, really?
You're supposed to stand until you've visited all the tables. Don't you even know that much? This is why the uneducated. What are you talking about? Sit down, Dorothy.
I'm sorry. He seems to be mistaken. Father-in-law Daniel spoke up, and mother-in-law hurriedly took out a lace handkerchief and wiped my face. As I absent-mindedly watched the drops falling from my bangs, I felt a fierce anger boiling up inside me. I couldn't stand it anymore. It didn't matter that he was the father of my child. I was ready to reveal various things in front of the relatives and hurt his unnecessarily high pride. Someone had been silently watching Matthew yell at me. She had been sitting at the bride's friend's table and came running over the moment Matthew sat down.
Yes?
I knew it. You're the guy who approached us at the hotel bar the other day. Melissa, what's going on? Oh, it's true. The man who hit on us despite wearing a wedding ring? Matthew turned pale at Melissa's accusation. Loud enough for other tables to hear, Melissa's friend Linda exposed him. Let me say, what was it? Become my woman and you can live in luxury? I'll buy you a condo or anything? My wife lives off me, I can cheat, spend a fortune on women, and she can't say a word? That's what he said. Your wife is pitiful. Wait, Dorothy. Melissa's sister is that man's wife? Why is Melissa here? Oh, a friend of the bride. Melissa, who had brought her friends from the same table, feigned exaggerated surprise at seeing me. Though it was all an act, it shocked Matthew, so everything was going according to plan. The parents-in-law looked bewildered, comparing Melissa and her friends with Matthew.
Did you hit on women even though you're married? Come on, Dad. Don't believe their nonsense.
Matthew, sweating profusely, tried to make excuses. It's hard to ignore this. My sister and her friends are lying. I confronted Matthew. If you think it's a lie, shall we check the date and time? It matches exactly with when you were away on a business trip. Matthew's face contorted at the date and time mentioned by Melissa and her friends. It was indeed when Matthew was away on a business trip. This man is incredibly stingy, gives me hardly any living expenses, even though he works at a big company and earns a good salary. And he's about to be a father, but only thinks about his own enjoyment. Even if he's handsome, it's despicable. Laughed at by Melissa's friends, Matthew turned red and looked down. My parents-in-law looked at Matthew with dismay. Matthew, what are you doing as the head of the family? Don't embarrass us.
It's not like that, Mom. Dorothy, do something.
What do you want me to do? Melissa and her friends are just stating the facts. I coldly dismissed him, and Matthew's eyes bulged with rage.
If you say it's the truth, then show me the proof. Did you record my words or something? You didn't.
At his words, Melissa's friends fell silent. After watching them quietly return to their table, Matthew glared at me.
So, you were planning to embarrass me with your sister? Setting up that woman at the hotel I was staying at during my business trip?
How can I possibly do that when I don't even know which hotel you would be staying at?
It's you, isn't it? You must have checked. Fine. Remember this when we get home.
As the bride and groom made their re-entry, I ignored Matthew's words and focused on the newlyweds. It was time for the bride and groom to visit the guest tables. They were supposed to perform the candle service, lighting candles. Suddenly, I noticed Matthew, who had been exploding in anger, now laughing as he gazed at the bride. The bride, Patricia, unnaturally turned her face away from Matthew. As they were leaving, Matthew inexplicably moved his glass of beer closer to the bride, Patricia, and spilled beer on her dress.
Sorry, my hand slipped.
Matthew, really? This is troubling. It's a rental. The bride lamented, to which Matthew quickly offered.
I'm so sorry. It's best to wash it immediately, right? How about I accompany you to the bathroom so John can continue visiting the tables alone? No. It's weird to split up during the wedding. I'll go with her. Don't be shy. It would be bad if it doesn't end with the scheduled time.
But John, the groom, hesitated next to the bride, who looked troubled. That's when I offered some advice. Was it John? You shouldn't leave them alone. Matthew was hitting on Patricia just now. I saw it. John's eyes widened.
Wait, are you serious? Dorothy, stop spreading nonsense. Stop saying weird things.
Matthew cried out in a panic.
What's going on here? Are you trying to ruin the happy atmosphere?
I don't enjoy this either, but Matthew, you're the one who caused it. I looked up at the bride and said firmly, Patricia is better to speak up early. Don't just endure it. Encouraged by my words, the bride looked determinedly at John and began. John, Dorothy's right. When I went to the bathroom earlier, Matthew hit on me. The bride continued as John was taken aback. John and Matthew, you've been friends since childhood, right? I kept quiet because I thought revealing this might ruin your relationship. But why should I have to endure this? The bride glared at Matthew and said in a stern tone, I remember every word he said. I'll tell everything.
Stop.
Ignoring Matthew's interruption, the bride spoke out loud for everyone to hear. He said things like, I'm smarter than John, work at a better company. Being my wife would be more beneficial for you. Just contact me after your honeymoon. Between what he said to Dorothy's sister and her friends, he really has no morals. Matthew covered his mouth with his hand, panicking as he looked back and forth between the angry faces of the bride and groom.
John, you wouldn't believe such a woman, right? We're best friends, aren't we? Forgot all those times we played together as kids?
John coldly retorted to Matthew's rapid speech.
Of course I trust her. I knew about Matthew's bad habits with women, but hitting on the bride? That's messed up. Even if I'm just average, I'm a better person than you.
The venue started buzzing as John's painful voice echoed. Relatives who understood the situation began to criticize. Matthew's handsome and was expected to succeed in our family, but he's always been arrogant. Over 40 and still behaving like that. No matter how smart, he's the worst, a disgrace to the family. Matthew turned red up to his neck.
What an awful cousin, John. Maybe you should cut ties with him. John is way cooler than that old man. Shut up.
Matthew stood up, yelling loudly enough to fill the venue.
It was just a joke with the bride. You took it seriously. I was testing her to see if she'd easily flirt with other men. Good thing she's not a man-eater. You should thank me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
John laughed at Matthew's outburst.
I'm here, giving you the honor of my presence. Forget it. This wedding's a waste of time. Dad, Mom, Dorothy, we're leaving.
You're free to leave if you wish, I told him, and Matthew looked surprised. I looked straight at Matthew and declared firmly, I won't return to that room. I will not live with you anymore. I really wanted to hand him divorce papers right then, but doing so at a wedding would be inappropriate, so I planned to send them later. I don't want to see your face anymore. Leave quickly. Staying any longer would trouble everyone else. After saying this clearly, Matthew erupted in anger. Unable to bear being defied by his usually submissive wife,
You, taking a father away from his child? No mother as low as you could raise a child properly. Leave if you want, but the child stays with me.
I won't hand over this child to you.
Then I'll hire a lawyer and fight. A capable man like me will surely win.
How is a father like you in any way advantageous? You're still as delusional as ever. Shaking my head in disbelief, Melissa, who had been silent until now, stepped forward and handed Matthew a business card. I work in this field in case you're interested. I can introduce you to someone. Matthew's eyes widened as he looked at the business card Melissa handed him.
Head of the office? From that major firm?
You knew that. As expected, quite knowledgeable. Melissa smiled.
I didn't know your sister was a lawyer. Why didn't you tell me?
I smiled thinly. Oh, did you want to know? I thought it might hurt your unnecessarily high pride. Then Melissa chimed in. Just to correct what Matthew might be misunderstanding, Dorothy didn't go to college because she prioritized recovering from an illness over continuing her studies abroad. She had been accepted to a university in England. Such a waste. Well, I never mentioned it because it's not something to boast about. My eldest brother and older brother went to universities in England, and Melissa graduated from H University. Quite international, right? Matthew looked at me as if I were an alien.
That's impossible. Dorothy can't answer a single question on quiz shows.
Because if I did, it would hurt your pride. Belittling me daily because you think you're smarter is what you live for. I looked at Matthew with pity. I know all those answers. Maybe next time, I'll give you the answers before they're revealed on the show. Matthew, gaping like a fish, received my final blow. I just hope our child doesn't end up as foolish as you. Exposed to the icy stares of me, Melissa, the bride and groom, and both families, Matthew must have felt unbearable. He twisted his face in frustration and fled, followed by the parents-in-law, to the laughter of the guests. After Matthew and the parents-in-law left, the wedding was canceled. The bride and groom decided to hold a reception later just for friends, apologizing for ruining the special day. But John forgave them easily.
I'm partly to blame for inviting Matthew. Don't worry about the money. We'll make sure he pays.
As I declared, I moved back to my parents' home after the wedding. I had considered staying in a hotel until finding a new place, but my family insisted on hosting me. After arranging for movers and sending Matthew the compensation claim and divorce papers, I received a call the next day.
Why should I pay compensation? I was just disciplining my wife. You're going to raise a child on your own, right? I won't pay child support.
I took the phone away from my ear and calmly responded, Oh, is that so? Then we can settle this in court, which will cost you more. You can have that condominium. Just give me half its value. Compensation and appraisal value, all in one payment. Ignore this and I'll sue. Good luck.
Please, Dorothy, spare me the compensation. I have to pay John too, and together it'll drain my savings.
I was fed up with Matthew's pathetic voice. You made me save so much, yet you're saying your savings will vanish due to compensation? Perhaps you spent it on other women. Matthew fell silent. I hit the nail on the head. I wasn't even angry. I had set up the compensation high, anticipating this. Eventually, Matthew gave in and transferred the compensation to my account. Later, I heard from a friend that a coworker of Matthew's attended the wedding and spread the word about his actions at the company. Losing his boss's trust, Matthew was transferred to a less significant department, and his salary was significantly cut. Though he was popular among female coworkers for his work, he lost his appeal the moment he veered off the elite track. Matthew's confidence plummeted, and he quickly aged. Once handsome, he now looked pitiful with disheveled, graying hair and a sagging suit. Whenever he approached female coworkers, they screamed and ran away. I safely gave birth to a healthy boy, and with Melissa's help, raised him without returning to my hometown. We moved to the condominium bought with the compensation, and I started working at Melissa's office while my child attended a child care center. So far, child support has been promptly deposited every month. I threatened to garnish his wages if he defaulted, which seemed effective. Next time, I hope to find someone far better than Matthew, who will adore my child. Without a father, I plan to pour twice the love into raising my child with care. I'm Chelsea. A few weeks ago, my father, who had been battling illness, passed away. I wish I could have shown him his grandchildren. Such words escaped my lips, along with a sigh. I got married when I was 25. That was exactly 5 years ago. At my wedding, my father and I made a promise. I'll let you know first when I get pregnant. But that promise remained unfulfilled. That's about the only regret I have about my father. Since his illness was discovered a year ago, I've done everything I could for him. I regularly returned to my parents' home and visited the hospital with my mother. I increased the frequency of phone calls and video chats. I did everything I could think of. Still, I can't help but wonder, could I have done more? I muttered. My mother, sitting next to me, reassured me. You did well, Chelsea. Really? Yes, your father would be satisfied. Just then, my sister Portia returned. I'm back, brought the lawyer. My sister entered the living room saying so. Behind her was a man in his mid-40s. I assumed he was the lawyer, and he handed me his business card. I'm Samuel, the attorney. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. Excuse me then. My mother guided the lawyer Samuel to his seat. As soon as he sat down, my sister blurted out, I heard from this lawyer that Dad left quite an inheritance. It's not all for you, Portia. I know that. My sister, now in a bad mood, glared at me. I glared back. My sister and I don't get along. We used to be okay, but things turned sour when we found out about Dad's illness. One reason was my sister's arrogant attitude. No matter how many times I reached out, she never visited our father. Of course, I may have said it wrong. I might have been a bit harsh because I was worried about him, but her reaction was also a problem. You're not a child. You don't have to be so stubborn. When I said that, my sister retorted, I'm not being stubborn. I live in the city. It's not easy to come. It's the countryside. But you can get here in 2 hours by car. Those 2 hours are tough. It costs money. It's money that's important to you? Of course it is. I'm busy, so stop contacting me. And with that, she finally stopped talking. Even if she lives far away, she could visit once in a while. I always thought so. That's why our relationship deteriorated so quickly. In the end, my sister never visited our father, so our relationship remained strained. Sensing the tension, the lawyer intervened. Let's calm down, please. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologized, and the lawyer nodded before continuing. As I mentioned on the phone, I have your husband's will. When did this happen? My mother murmured. A few weeks before he passed away, he contacted me. So you went to the hospital? Yes. I had him write the will in front of me, with his primary physician present. It turns out they had arranged for the primary physician to contact the lawyer when my father passed away. So after my father passed away, he contacted the lawyer. In turn, the lawyer reached out to us. That's how it happened, and why I'm contacting you now, the lawyer said, pulling out a white envelope. He placed it in front of us. This is the will. That's definitely Dad's handwriting, I muttered, verifying the characters on the envelope. My sister Portia seemed a bit sulky. Never mind, just tell us what's in it. I'm busy, you know. Very well, the lawyer said with a wry smile, opening the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper. This is what was written there. It stated that besides the house and land, my father's inheritance included some savings and a storage shed. We knew about the house and land, but what's this about a storage shed? As I was pondering this, my sister angrily said to the lawyer, Wait a minute, you didn't mention the farm. The farm? Yes, the farm Dad used to work on as a hobby. My father used to run a company in the next town. But after turning 50, he began to feel his age. I'm thinking of closing the company. I want to take it easy. Is that okay? I heard this when I was in high school. My sister, who was in college at the time, opposed it, but my mother and I, concerned about my father's health, agreed. Don't worry about the money, Portia. We have enough savings. My father reassured her. Reluctantly, she agreed. After that, my father really did close his company and started farming near our home. It feels good to move my body while farming, he said, looking happy. Seeing him like that, I felt glad I had agreed. But my sister didn't seem to feel the same. She had said she would return home after graduating from college, but instead, she got a job near her university. Eventually, she married the CEO of an IT company she met through work. Anyway, that's why Father was farming until he got sick. My sister insists that the farm should also be part of the inheritance. The lawyer reviewed the documents after hearing this from my sister. He quickly found a note and said, The farm is rented land. Rented? I thought we owned a large piece of land, my sister said, disappointed. Indeed, the farm where my father grew vegetables was spacious, but it might be too much for us, who know nothing about farming. Maybe it's good that it's rented. That's what I thought. The conversation then shifted to dividing the inheritance. As for the division of the inheritance, the house and land go to the wife, the lawyer said. My sister grinned. So we can divide the rest however we want? Please divide the savings and storage shed fairly between you two. Savings means cash, right? I'll take the cash. How much is it? The savings amount to about $100,000. There's no need to pay inheritance tax for this amount. Then I'll take the $100,000 in cash, my sister declared triumphantly. But I couldn't agree with such a selfish arrangement. I strongly protested against my sister. Wait a minute, I object. Why? I'm the eldest daughter. That's irrelevant. You can have the storage shed, what even that is. What even is that, anyway? My sister turned back to the lawyer. Flipping through the documents, the lawyer answered, It's the storage shed next to the farm. You'll inherit the building, the land, and its contents. With land? My sister's eyes lit up. Even though she's married to the CEO of an IT company, does she still want more money? As I was wondering this, the lawyer told my sister the following. The land comes with it, but it's about 65 square feet, roughly the size of a small bedroom. A small bedroom? Yes, here are the photos. The lawyer placed photos of the shed on the table. Pictures of both the interior and exterior were displayed. The exterior clearly looked like a rundown shack. The inside contained only basic tools like hose, scissors, and shovels. Nothing that seemed valuable. I don't want it. My sister grimaced. I peeked at the photos too. It was all very ordinary. These are sentimental items, but they won't bring in money. As I was thinking this, my sister spoke. Fine, I'll take the cash. You can have that dirty shed. Hold on, that's not fair. You agreed to the vegetable farming. What are you complaining about now? It was hard to argue when she put it that way. Still, if I didn't say something, she'd take all of Dad's inheritance. So we're good then? My sister pressed me. As I struggled to answer, my mother chimed in. As long as Portia won't complain later, I have no objections. There's no way I would. Then Portia gets the cash and Chelsea gets the shed. Okay, it's settled then. My sister grinned. Feeling uneasy, I immediately objected. Well, I'm not satisfied. Oh, give it up. But you're so greedy, aren't you? That's not it. You're such a hassle. You care more about Dad than money, right? My sister's words left me speechless. Of course, family is more important than money. Money is important, but it's not something to compare with family. While I was thinking this, my sister quickly ended the conversation. In the end, my mother got the house and land. My sister got Dad's savings. All that was left for me was the dirty shed. After that, my sister signed a document promising not to complain about the inheritance division. She left, laughing loudly. I was full of complaints. I couldn't help but vent to my mother. Mom, why didn't you help me? I did help you. How? You just sided with Portia. That's not true. I made sure you got the shed. Huh? I'm not happy about getting that shed. You might find something surprisingly good if you look closely, my mother said with a smile. I could only puff out my cheeks in response. The next day, I took the key from the lawyer and headed to the shed near the field. It was a 10-minute walk from home, a rural road where no one else passed by. I finally reached the field my father had rented. For the past year, he had been hospitalized, so the field was empty. I opened the shed with the key. Wow, it's dusty. The shed was quite dusty, probably because no one had cleaned it. Still, there might be something sentimental from Dad. Thinking this, I looked around the shed. Nothing special here. It was just a dirty shed after all. All I found were tools Dad had used for farming. They could be considered sentimental, but they weren't anything special. Maybe I should just take what's inside for now, I mumbled, looking around the shed. That's when I noticed something. It looks smaller than from the outside. Maybe it was the dim light, but the inside of the shed felt a bit cramped. Is it just my imagination? Thinking this way, I stepped outside the shed, but something still felt off. After pondering for a bit, I decided to walk around to the back of the shed. The backside was adjacent to a thicket of various trees. To my surprise, there was another door there. Wait, another entrance at the back? I gasped. When I looked from inside the shed, there was only a wall, meaning the only entrance was the door I had used. Yet from the back, there was a door. What's going on? I thought about it. A door on the back should be visible from inside too, but it wasn't. That meant there had to be a wall in between. In other words, there was a space accessible only from the back. The moment I realized this, I got excited. This must be Dad's surprise. Dad always loved surprises. He even surprised me on my birthdays. Memories flooded back, and I found myself tearing up. I quickly returned inside the shed and began searching for the back door key. If it was Dad, he would have hidden it somewhere in the shed. With that gut feeling, I rummaged through the shed. After a while, I found 2 keys hidden in the handle of a shovel. I went around to the back and tried one of the keys in the door. With a click, the door opened. What could be in here? The space inside was indeed cramped, only about 3 feet wide. A large safe stood alone in the space. Is this from Dad's company? I recognized the safe. It was the same one I saw in the corner of his office when I was a child. Nostalgic. I hugged the safe. This was a true memory of my father. I felt fulfilled. This alone made the inheritance worthwhile. But knowing Dad, this couldn't be the end. There's got to be more surprises. I muttered and inserted the second key into the safe. With a slightly rusty sound, the safe opened. What? No way. The moment I saw the contents, I was stunned. Inside was an unexpected inheritance. What should I do? Oh, I have to tell Mom. I locked the safe and rushed to my mother. After explaining the situation to her, I called my husband, and with his help, we moved the safe from my parents' house. Then it hit me. The contents of the safe were undoubtedly Dad's. However, if it's part of my inheritance, including the shed, I might have to pay inheritance tax. Better get this checked out thoroughly. The contents of the safe were clearly valuable. I decided to consult the lawyer. Inheritance tax? For that you should. According to the lawyer, it's better to consult a certified public accountant. So I got a referral to an accountant from a friend. I left all the complicated matters to that accountant. Half a year passed in this way. Just when I thought things had finally settled down, my sister showed up near my home. What brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I had some business at our parents' house. So you stopped by? Yeah, something like that. My sister's behavior was strange. It's funny, no matter how you look at it. Even if my home is close to our parents', it's still a 20-minute drive. We're not the kind of sisters who would casually visit, especially after the tension over Dad's inheritance. It's not a relationship that comes to play carelessly. I couldn't shake off my suspicion as I looked at her. Meanwhile, my sister, acting a bit nervous, asked, "Can I come in?" "Sure, but what's the matter?" "I have something to talk about," my sister said, forcing a smile. Reluctantly, I let my sister into the house. After I served some coffee, she started to fidget and then began to speak. "So, did you win the lottery or something?" "What? No, I didn't." "Then did your husband get a bonus?" I tilted my head, puzzled. I never buy lottery tickets because I'm not interested. My husband, who's a salaried worker, does get a holiday bonus, but it's not that time of year. What on earth is she talking about? Confused, I asked her directly. "Hey, what are you talking about?" Suddenly, my sister got angry. "What? Are you making fun of me?" "No, what are you talking about?" "Money! Money! You have it, don't you?" "Money?" "Yes, I heard about it." My sister began to speak excitedly. It was a story from a few days ago. Living in the city, my sister had run into our aunt by chance. The woman started the conversation like this. "I know how hard it's been for you since you lost your father. Are you doing okay?" "Yes, well, I visited him many times when he was sick." "Thank you. But you must be relieved, right? Getting such a big thank you gift." "Thank you gift?" "Yes, your sister sent me a $500 gift card as a thank you for visiting him." "A gift card?" Needless to say, what caught my sister's attention was the gift card. Hearing that I had sent it, she was convinced I had come into some extra money. "You got a windfall, didn't you? Just admit it." My sister interrogated me. "Ah, that's what this is about." I sighed. My sister didn't like my attitude and yelled, What's with that attitude? Are you mocking me? No, it was a thank you gift. So where did you get the money for it? That's what I want to know. From the inheritance, remember? Inheritance? Yes, I got the inheritance. So I sent thank you gifts to relatives who had helped us. Upon hearing this, my sister frowned. All you got was that dirty shed. Yes, that's true. But you can't sell that for money. But there was a safe inside it. That's where the real inheritance was. A safe? Real inheritance? I carefully explained to her about the watches in the safe. They were all valuable, collected by my father as a hobby during his lifetime. However, I didn't know their exact value. On the other hand, the remaining savings were about $100,000. Considering he was a business owner who could retire early, that amount seemed small. That led me to think he might have invested a lot in those watches. If they're valuable, you'll have to pay inheritance tax, my mother had said after seeing the contents of the safe. What should I do, Mom? When I asked, my mother thought for a moment and advised. Things like this always come out. You should declare it properly. How? Well, let's ask that lawyer we spoke to recently. So I consulted the lawyer again. I was told that if you inherit valuables, the inheritance tax is determined by their value at that time. I was also told that a certified public accountant could handle it for me. So I left it to the accountant. As a result, it was found the watches alone were worth at least $500,000. With watches this valuable, you'll have to pay inheritance tax. How should I pay it? How about keeping the ones you're emotionally attached to and selling the rest? Certainly, it doesn't make sense to me, who doesn't know the value, to hold on to such expensive watches. I'd rather someone who understands their worth have them. With that thought, I sold some of the watches. I used the money from the sale to pay the inheritance tax and sent thank you gifts to the relatives who had helped us. Those thank you gifts were the gift cards my sister was talking about. By the way, what I kept were items like the pocket watch my father often wore. I showed my sister the pocket watch as I told her this story. This one isn't expensive, but it holds the most memories for me. However, my sister frowned upon hearing my story. What? You don't have any left? No, there are still some in the safe. Where's the safe? It's at Mom's. The safe is too big for this house. It's the one Dad used at his company. My sister looked away, seeming deep in thought. I felt uneasy seeing her like this. But right after that, she stood up and said, I'm leaving, now that I know where the money came from, and left. Considering how money-minded my sister is, I thought she might demand some of the money from the watch sales. I was relieved she left without making a fuss. However, in my relief, I forgot the unease I had felt earlier. My sister isn't that understanding. I had forgotten that. I was reminded of this late that night, when I got a call from my mother. Chelsea, it's urgent. Come over right away. What happened, Mom? It's just really bad. My mother was frantic and unclear. My husband and I rushed to my mother's house. As we approached, we noticed something strange. The area around my parents' house was lit up in red. What's going on? The reason became clear as we got closer. Several police cars were parked outside my parents' house. I pushed through the crowd and called out to my mother. What happened, Mom? Well, Chelsea, you see? According to my mother, it was after 9 p.m. Feeling tired, she had gone to bed already. Soon after, she heard strange noises. Sounds like someone searching for something came from beyond the door. Oh, it's a burglar! That's what my mother thought instantly. However, she was the only one in the house. Feeling helpless, she decided to escape through the window. Looking back, she saw the light of a flashlight moving inside the house. This is definitely a burglar. Convinced, she ran to the neighbor's house and said, Help, there's a burglar! Hearing this, the neighbor immediately came out. They too saw the swaying light my mother was pointing at and called the police, thinking it was a burglar. However, it wasn't a burglar at all. It was my sister, who had sneaked into the house. She had gone to rummage through the safe after hearing my story. Neither my mother nor the neighbor had any way of knowing this. Soon the police arrived, and naturally my sister was shocked. Realizing she was in trouble, she tried to make a quick escape. Of course, It's her own family home, so there's no need to run. Yet in her panic, my sister thought she had to escape. In her rush, she bumped into the open door of the safe. Just then, the already unstable safe toppled over, falling right onto her as she tried to flee. So Portia got trapped under it?
Yes, that's what happened.
Is she okay?
She was taken to the hospital by ambulance, but she keeps saying her leg hurts.
What on earth was she thinking? I was truly dumbfounded. Afterward, my mother and I apologized to the police officers who had come to help, feeling bad for calling so late. I also phoned my sister's husband.
Wait, you're saying Portia broke into her own family home and got injured?
Yes, that's correct.
What is Portia doing? She doesn't even do housework.
I'm really sorry about my sister.
That's it. I'm filing for divorce.
Divorce?
Actually,
according to my sister's husband, she had racked up a considerable amount of debt. Apparently, she had been spending a lot on brand-name items. He had just found out, and they had a huge fight. In the end, my sister stormed out of the house saying, "I'll borrow from Mom and pay it back." Turns out, she had already used the $100,000 she inherited to pay off her debts. Still short, she came to me to scrounge for more money. Learning about the contents of the safe led to her actions, which in turn led to this whole mess. No wonder her husband was furious. In the end, my sister, who had fractured her leg, was hospitalized. Her husband came to the hospital and started talking about divorce. Naturally, my sister made a scene. "I'm not getting a divorce, absolutely not." But it was too late. Her husband had brought the divorce papers. Seeing them, she had no choice but to sign. Now she's lying in her hospital bed, stunned. There's a part-time job magazine next to her, so she's probably planning to start working part-time to pay off her debts. That would be a relief for me. As for me, I decided to move back to my parents' home after all the commotion. Of course, I'm worried about my mother, but there's another reason. I found out I'm pregnant. My husband and I talked it over and decided to move back home and have my mother help us with the children and childcare. I wish I could have told my father about the pregnancy while he was alive, but I'm sure he would be happy for us. So I'm looking forward to giving birth to a healthy baby. My name is Nicole, and I am a 34-year-old hairdresser. I work as a chief stylist at the hair salon managed by my husband, Michael, who is 3 years older than me. We met through a mutual acquaintance, and I was drawn to his kind and friendly personality, which led us to get married 4 years ago. On the other hand, my husband's mother, Victoria, divorced when Michael was still in junior high school, and has since raised him single-handedly, which is a point of pride for her. While I believe this is an admirable quality, she still thinks that she has complete decision-making power over her son's every move. As a result, when we got married, she forced her opinions on everything, from the wedding ceremony, honeymoon, new house selection, to the interior design. To be honest, I had my own visions for things like the wedding ceremony, honeymoon, and of course, our new home. However, whenever I expressed my opinions, she would reject them outright. And when Michael tried to intervene, she would say, "Well, do you intend to defy me, who will become your mother-in-law? You know the saying about casting pearls before swine, right? You don't need such a wedding dress, seriously. I can imagine what the future holds if you're like this now. I wonder what kind of upbringing your parents gave you." Not only did she refuse to listen, but she also insulted my parents in the process. Honestly, I felt worried about the future, and my parents suggested, "Why not take a step back and think it over?"
I'm truly sorry for my mother's interference. I think it was very rude of her, but I want to build a family with Nicole and be happy together. I will work hard for this, so please, will you watch over our marriage as it is? Said Michael, who apologized sincerely. Seeing this, both my parents and I thought, I am sure that this man will stand by me in the future, even if my mother-in-law and I have conflicts.
So we decided to get married. In the end, the wedding ceremony and our new home were entirely based on my mother-in-law's wishes. My mother at home advised me, "Take a loss now to gain later. I know you must be dissatisfied, but if you give face to your mother-in-law here, in a way, it'll create a debt she owes you." With her advice, I agreed to go along with it. However, now I regret my decision from 4 years ago more deeply than the ocean and higher than the mountains. Michael, I'd like to talk about work for a moment. I'm busy tonight with the junior chamber meeting. Yesterday was a shopping district gathering, and today is a junior chamber meeting? Last week, you had drinking parties and dinners every day. When can we actually sit down and talk? Well, every gathering and party is a part of my business, right? You're not good enough to be a wife of an entrepreneur. Complaining about it. I'm not complaining, but now we have 3 stores, and it's only natural that I'd want to discuss various things about management, right? Well, I leave everything about the stores to you, Nicole. Your only redeeming quality, with no education or notable family background, is your skill as a hairdresser. So it's natural for you to work on increasing sales for the stores, right? So why are you trying to rely on me? Isn't that strange? Here we go again. 4 years after starting our hair salon business from scratch, we have successfully opened our 3rd store and are considering opening a 4th by the end of the fiscal year. It's a significant accomplishment, but as the business grows and Michael is praised as a young entrepreneur, he increasingly looks down on me. I can deal with him talking about my education and such, but he constantly belittles me, criticizing my looks, fashion sense, and even comparing me to rival stylists. Moreover, when I have to postpone a task requested by Michael, or don't reply to his line messages immediately, he starts to ignore me. When he begins to ignore me, he comes home late, leaves the dinner and breakfast I prepared untouched, and ostentatiously orders takeout or buys sandwiches and coffee from the convenience store. He spends more time at his mother's place, who lives on a different floor of the same apartment building, even taking baths there. At first, I was at a loss for how to improve his mood when he started his silent treatment. Even though I knew he wouldn't eat, I was afraid that not preparing meals would make him even angrier. So I continued to cook and prepare the bath, knowing it would be wasted. I often stayed up all night waiting for Michael, who didn't reply to my line messages, and whose return time was uncertain. In the meantime, my mother-in-law would launch her attacks. "I knew you were a terrible wife, but I didn't think you'd be this bad." Why is Michael ignoring me? What's the reason? "You really don't have any idea. I can't believe it." Are you angry because I did something wrong? If you heard it from Michael, please tell me. "There's no point in me telling someone who doesn't know their own shortcomings, right?" She laughs and doesn't give me an answer. After a while in that state, just when I start to lose my patience, "I'm home. Oh, I'm hungry. What's for dinner today?" He comes back nonchalantly as if nothing happened back then. Oh, I'm so glad she talked to me. I would feel relieved. But eventually, I don't want to be ignored again. I unconsciously started living a life where I tried to please Michael and gauge his mood. I realized that when Rebecca, a new stylist who joined the company this spring, pointed it out to me one day. That day, I was being ignored by Michael as usual, not eating dinner or breakfast and not talking. Not wanting to waste it, I had packed the side dishes I had made for Michael into a lunchbox and brought it to the store. As I ate it for lunch, Rebecca spoke to me. "Nicole, is that lunchbox homemade by you?" Yeah, I just packed some leftovers from yesterday, though." I know it's a marital issue, and a newcomer like me probably shouldn't interfere, but Have you realized that President Michael is trying to control you? What? Control? What do you mean? I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but isn't President Michael thoroughly ignoring you right now? Yeah, he is. I thought so. I saw him talking and smiling with everyone else, but ignoring you in the staff room. He thinks nobody's watching, but he brushes off your hand rudely. And then there's that lunchbox. Grilled mackerel and meat and potatoes. It's obvious that you just packed last night's dinner side dishes, right? It's worlds apart from your usual well-balanced, colorful lunchboxes. After Rebecca said that, actually my mother went through the same thing before she divorced my biological father. She told me her story. Rebecca's parents divorced when she was in her first year of high school, and her biological father often ignored her mother, just like Michael. It all started with such small, trivial things, but it was like a switch had been flipped, and then he ignored her completely. My mother cried a lot. I see. Eventually, she started to look for my father's approval in everything, and her smile became submissive. It's really painful to watch. Rebecca then told me that the reason Michael was ignoring me was because he was trying to control me through silence, making me worry, and ensuring he was always in a dominant position, smirking all the while. I mean, think about it. Normally, if your partner is worried or hurt, you'd be concerned, and it would be painful for you too. But people like the president actually enjoy seeing their partner worried and insecure. They're twisted. Since Rebecca said that so bluntly, I started to lose the will to panic like I used to. Even when Michael became moody and ignored me, or when my mother-in-law egged me on. Instead, once I started observing with that perspective, I began to notice only Michael's childishness, his terrible selfishness, and the maliciousness of my mother-in-law, who wouldn't even try to restrain him. However, it seemed they didn't like my attitude, and the oppressive silence directed at me by both Michael and my mother-in-law gradually became an everyday occurrence. He hardly came home unless he felt like it, and when he did, he would just lock himself in his room. He stopped showing his face at both the store and the company, and I essentially had to manage both by myself. Then one day, when such days had continued, that day was a day off for the store, and I was doing a thorough cleaning of our house for the first time in a while. I usually rely on the Roomba and Brava, but it's nice weather, so I guess I'll clean every corner for a change. Thinking that, I started wiping the windows while playing my favorite music on my smartphone, when Michael and my mother-in-law entered the house silently, unlocking the door with a click. As they plopped down on the living room sofa. Since my husband and mother-in-law are sitting here, I decided to make some tea quickly.
Such an inconsiderate wife. Haha.
Really? But can we say goodbye to this kind of wife soon?
Phew. It's going to be refreshing.
That's what they said, as I reluctantly made tea and placed it on the sofa table, feeling puzzled. You see, Michael has a child now, so you should step aside and leave quickly.
We'll give you about 2 weeks' grace, so leave this apartment during that time.
Of course we'll have you quit your job as well. No severance pay, though. Ha 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 ha. That's what they said. Michael has a child. Does that mean he's been cheating? And I have to leave here? I'm losing my job? No severance pay either? Although we were a couple in a Cold War, my mind was spinning with questions as I tried to process the sudden news, unable to catch up. The next wife is very different from you, ha ha. Her family is rich, and she graduated from a top women's college. And after that, she trained in the beauty capital, Paris. There's no way you can compete with her, so just give up already, ha ha.
She's 3 months pregnant, and I want to make her feel secure, as my wife, quickly.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. There's no doubt a wonderful child will be born. They said whatever they wanted. So if she's 3 months pregnant, then that means the child is a result of an affair, right?
Yeah, so what's your point? Emily and I just met in the wrong order. We were truly connected by the red thread of fate.
So you want me to leave because now you want to marry your fated partner?
That's what we've been saying. You're really slow to catch on.
As I watched Michael and my mother-in-law's cheerful attitude, I could feel a headache coming on. At that point, I told them that I needed some time to think and asked them to leave.
It's a fact that it takes time to truly understand things with a scattered mind such as yours. I get it,
they said, then withdrew to my mother-in-law's room. After that, I couldn't bring myself to continue cleaning and just sat down on the floor. However, I noticed that the only incoming call screen on my smartphone was shining brightly in the dimly lit room. It was from Rebecca. Rebecca? Oh, Nicole, where are you now? At home? When I briefly answered yes, Rebecca said she was coming over right away and hung up the phone. About 30 minutes later, Rebecca appeared with both hands full of bulging eco bags.
Sorry for the intrusion. I bought some random food and drinks for us.
Saying that cheerfully, she borrowed the washroom to wash her hands, then quickly began to arrange the deli food she had bought on the table. She brought glasses from the kitchen and poured craft beer, her recent favorite, and said, "Let's eat before it gets cold." And she put a spoon in my hand. I tried eating as told, and the taste of fluffy, soft omelet rice filled my mouth. Delicious. Right? This place has amazing omelet rice, she said with a bright smile. I brought a variety of things, so please savor and enjoy them. I was reminded that I had only eaten coffee and bread for breakfast and hadn't had a proper meal. Although I had been completely emotionless until then, I was hungry after all. I realized for the first time. We ate in silence for a while, and when we started drinking beer, Rebecca said, "I received a group email from the boss saying that you're leaving the store at the end of this month." I told her that my mother-in-law and Michael had demanded a divorce and that I quit the store. Rebecca was silent for a moment at my answer, but soon asked, looking straight into my eyes, "What do you want to do, Nicole? Do you mean what I want to do, not what they say I have to do? It's your life, Nicole. You decide which way to steer. You should steer toward what you want." What I want, When Rebecca said that, my heart felt surprisingly clear. Let's get a divorce. There's not a single reason why I should stay with Michael and his family. I want a divorce. I want to start my life over right away. I answered clearly. I was given a 10-day grace period by Michael, but once I started taking action, everything went smoothly. I didn't have many personal belongings, so I quickly packed them up in separate boxes provided by the moving company. I asked Rebecca to handle my belongings at the store because I didn't want to see Michael until everything was settled. At the same time, I asked a lawyer, introduced by an acquaintance, to prepare a document demanding alimony and division of property from Michael. I signed a contract for a property I liked after several viewings. As soon as the move was completed, I had a lawyer send documents to my mother-in-law. Almost at the same time the letter arrived, I received a barrage of line messages and emails from my mother-in-law and Michael, so I decided to propose a meeting at the lawyer's office. While waiting at the lawyer's office for the scheduled time, a grinning mother-in-law, Michael, and young woman appeared. When the lawyer asked the woman,
"Who might you be?"
before she could answer, my mother-in-law said, "This is Emily, who will become Michael's wife after your divorce."
As soon as I submit the divorce papers with you, I plan to immediately submit the marriage registration with Emily.
They seemed very pleased. Since it didn't matter to me, I just asked if they would agree to our demands, and they said,
"Yeah, think of it as a severance payment. We'll pay you whatever you want."
I didn't think it was necessary, but Michael is a kind person. For you, who will live a lonely life from now on, Money is all you can rely on. They handed over the full amount I had specified in cash with a bank's envelope seal. I then filled in and stamped my section of the divorce papers and handed them over, ending the process. Finally, I said, I don't think we'll meet again, but just in case, I will never help you in any way, no matter what happens. Ahaha, so this is your last desperate remark. Okay, I understand you're upset, but you don't have to be so sarcastic. The woman named Emily and the three of them left the office laughing. I am now working as top stylist at a hair salon in the city center. Rebecca, who has been assisting me since last month, is the same Rebecca who helped me see the truth. After deciding to divorce at the lawyer's office, I immediately started looking for a new job. My past contest awards and being featured on a beauty website as a popular stylist helped me quickly land a new job. I am able to live without touching the consolation money or property division. I also started dating a man I met at a joint training session with the sister store of the salon where I currently work. I feel surprisingly free and relaxed every day. Nice. Where are you going on your next date? Hey, don't tease your seniors. Rebecca continued to work at Michael's salon for a while after I left. In fact, I was the one who convinced Rebecca to quit immediately. There were two reasons. The possibility that Rebecca, who had just started working, would be seen as lacking cooperation or patience if she quit, and concern that Rebecca might still be targeted by Michael and his mother if they knew she was still my friend. Rebecca reluctantly stayed at the salon, and according to her, the aftermath of Michael, his mother, and Emily was like a roller coaster drama. Emily appeared at the salon after my divorce, full of confidence, as the new top stylist and field manager, but her pride lasted only one day. The male staff member, who had been the sub-stylist under me, turned out to be Emily's class. Not knowing this, Emily made a grand entrance at the salon as a Paris-trained hairstylist, accompanied by Michael.
Wow, I thought you must be some amazing person since you said you were back from Paris, but it's just you, Emily.
Thomas, why are you here?
I should be asking you the same thing. I'm really surprised. You were always getting scolded by the teacher because you couldn't do any of the written test subjects at all. How did Emily, who kept repeating a year and eventually faded away, end up in Paris?
That's not true at all, is it? Don't make things up, right, Emily? Well,
you'd need a French hairdresser's license to work in Paris, right? When did you become fluent in French, like a native speaker? Of course, I studied at university, didn't I? University? Wow. The Emily who used to say she didn't understand English during the elective French conversation classes at beauty school.
And with that, Emily's disguise was completely stripped away. Afterward, a loud argument broke out between Emily, Michael, and Emily's mother-in-law, who rushed into the scene. The situation got out of hand, and the police were called. As a result, staff members began to leave one by one, and the salon lost its energy. Customers started to drift away, and the business quickly hit a dead end. They had no choice but to close two of their stores and try to restart at the original store. But it was already too late, and they had to close down completely last month. That must have been really tough. It really was. But because of that, I was treated as having left the company due to company circumstances. So the questions about my previous job during the interview here went smoothly. I'm happy to be working together again, but why did you choose this salon? Of course, it's to learn from Nicole's skills up close. I got it. I'll train you properly. Sometime after Rebecca changed jobs, a letter arrived from Michael and his mother through the lawyer, who was hired for the divorce. They probably had no other way to contact me, since I had cut off all communication and my parents had firmly refused contact as well. The letter went on and on about how they had been deceived by Emily, and that she wasn't pregnant and her background was all lies. She had taken everything from Thomas, all the valuable items, and disappeared shortly after. They had lost the salon and the apartment that they had used as collateral. Nicole is the only hope for me and my mother. I believe that you, being so kind, will extend a helping hand to us in our time of need. We want to hear from you as soon as possible. After skimming the letter, I called the lawyer who had passed it on to me. Please, just tell them I don't care. You don't have to pass on any more messages from them. And so, just as Rebecca had told me before, my life, with me, steering in the direction I wanted, is going great now, and I will never allow another man to control my destiny.
Bobby's mom! Please come immediately! The sight that I saw, having rushed over at the teacher's words, was my son collapsed on the spot. My son was unconscious after colliding with a friend and falling from the playground equipment. I was anxious and called help to my husband, but busy with his work, he didn't come to our son's side. Even though it's his job, it's just too cruel, while his own son is being taken away in an ambulance. I realized something. The worst reason he couldn't rush to our son's side. I'm Jennifer. I live with my husband John and our elementary school-age son, Bobby. John works in the hotel industry and doesn't have weekends off, so he rarely participates in Bobby's school events. He's never shown up for parent-teacher conferences or sports days. When we received the letter about a parent-child outing, I asked my husband, knowing he probably couldn't go, "John, there's a parent-child outing during the upcoming public holiday." "During a holiday? I can't. I have work." Despite understanding, I still felt lonely. When I asked other moms, they said that everyone is managing to attend with their spouses. Some people also work on weekends, but they seem to be adjusting to take the day off. When I mentioned this, John clearly seemed annoyed and retorted, "So what? You're telling me to take a day off too? You understand my work, right?" "Yeah, sorry." Reluctantly, I decided to attend the parent-child outing with Bobby alone. While many families were participating with both parents, there were also fathers participating alone because their wives were working. Well, it happens that wives have to work too. I wasn't bothered by it and thought I would enjoy the day with Bobby. However, when the children go off to play, it inevitably gets lonely. The other moms were there with their husbands, so it was hard to join in the conversation. As I was sitting there, the teacher came running towards me in a panic. "Bobby's mom, please come immediately." "Huh? What happened?" "Bobby, he collided with a friend and fell off the playground equipment." "What? Bobby?" I rushed to the scene to find my son unconscious. The teacher immediately called an ambulance, and I got in with Bobby, who was still unconscious. When we arrived at the hospital, he was immediately taken to the examination room. Realizing I hadn't informed John, I quickly called him. "Hello, John? Something terrible has happened. Bobby fell from the playground equipment and hit his head. He's unconscious." "What? Shouldn't you have called an ambulance before calling me?" "The teacher already did that. He's being transported to the hospital and undergoing examinations now." "All right. You're at the hospital then. Let me know the results via email when you know." "What?" I couldn't believe my ears. He wasn't planning to come to the hospital in this emergency? "What are you saying? You need to come home now." In response to my cry, my husband replied in a flippant tone, "Hey, didn't I tell you I can't take a break during this holiday?" "But we're in a state of emergency right now. Don't you understand?" "I know you're at the hospital, but what's the point of me going there? There's nothing I can do at the moment. We just have to wait for the results. Let me know when you get any updates. Bye for now." With that, John hung up the phone abruptly. I was left staring at my smartphone, dumbfounded. He wouldn't even come home for our son's critical situation. As I slumped there, a man approached me. "Are you Bobby's mom? I'm Alex's father." It was Alex's father who had spoken. Alex was the friend who had collided with Bobby. I remembered him attending the event with his son as his wife was absent. Alex's father bowed deeply towards me. I am truly sorry for what has happened. I hastily shook my head. I heard from the teacher that Bobby and Alex accidentally ran into each other. It was a careless mistake on our part as well. Please don't worry about it. Standing next to his father, Alex, with his bandages wrapped around him, stood there with his eyes swollen from crying. It's because I ran into Bobby. I reassured Alex gently. It's not your fault, Alex. Bobby will be absolutely fine. Once he's better, will you play with him again? Alex nodded tearfully. His father, looking relieved, thanked me. Thank you for your kind words. My wife should have been here to greet you as well. I apologize. No, it's okay. My husband can't come back from work either. Is Alex's mother at work too? No, actually. Alex's father hesitated. My wife is on a trip with her friends. It was planned before this field trip, so she couldn't cancel it. It's embarrassing. Oh, I see. I tried to contact her several times about the accident, but I haven't been able to reach her. As soon as Alex's father finished speaking, his phone rang. Oh, it's my wife. Excuse me for a moment. Alex's father quickly answered the phone and explained the situation to his wife. That's what happened. How soon can you get back here? 2 hours? But how are you going to get back? You can't drive, can you? Oh, a friend is with you? That's good then. Be careful. After ending the call, he reported to me with a relieved look. I'm sorry. I just got in touch with my wife. She has a friend who happens to be coming near here, and she will drive her here. It will take about 2 hours, though. I see. Then my phone rang. Oh, it's my husband. Excuse me. I excused myself and answered the call. John, what happened? I managed to get some time off and we'll head there. I'll finish work in about 2 hours and I'll head straight there. Really? That's great. After ending the call, I reported back to Alex's father. My husband will also be here in about 2 hours. It's good that we can both meet. Just then, we were called by the doctor who had finished the examination. According to the examination, Bobby had no abnormalities. He had just lost consciousness due to the shock, and they decided to observe him for now. Even though they said no abnormalities, it was still nerve-wracking not knowing when he would regain consciousness. As I came out of the examination room filled with worry, Alex's father was there waiting for me. He was holding Alex, who had fallen asleep from exhaustion. We started to chat about our families to distract ourselves from the situation. Alex's mother was a homemaker, but recently she had been going out with her friends often during evenings and weekends. When she was away, he would take care of their child. My wife usually takes care of our son Alex during weekdays, so I thought she should have some fun during nights and weekends. But now, I regret not canceling her trip during the school field trip. As I listened to his story, I couldn't help but compare it to my husband John. My husband, on his days off, be it weekends when he has work, or even on weekdays, he always leaves alone saying he needs to unwind. In contrast, Alex's father is actively involved in childcare. I found myself confiding my husband's complaints to him. As we talked, I noticed a strange coincidence. The behavior of John and Alex's mother coincided exactly. The days they couldn't attend events. The weekdays they went out in the evening. They were all the same. I suddenly became curious and asked, by the way, my husband went on a business trip to Phoenix last month. Oh, when was that? It was the first weekend of last month, I believe. My wife said she was going on a trip with friends that day and came back with souvenirs from Phoenix. Could it be? We exchanged glances. It had been about 2 hours since we called John and his wife. The first to contact us was John. My husband will arrive at the parking lot soon, so I'll go and pick him up. I told Alex's father and headed to the parking lot. When I nervously peeked into the car, there was no one in the passenger seat. Could it be that Alex's mother is with him? That's what I was speculating. I brought John, who got out of the car with an innocent face, back to the hospital room where Bobby was sleeping. After exchanging greetings with Alex's father, Alex's mother appeared. I didn't miss the moment when she and John looked at each other's faces and were momentarily lost for words. As if nothing had happened, John greeted Alex's mother. "Ha, hello. Thank you for always taking care of our son." Alex's mother quickly returned the greeting in response to John's excited voice. "Oh, yes. Hello. Likewise." Upon observing the two, I decided to stir the pot a bit. "Oh, is this your first time meeting my husband, Alex's mom?" Alex's mother answered in a flustered manner. Of course. It's our first meeting. Isn't it obvious?" "You don't have to deny it so desperately. It wouldn't be strange if you had met him at parent-teacher meetings or school events, right?" That's impossible. I didn't know John's son was in the same class as my son." I hadn't called my husband by his name in front of her yet. She took the bait. This was suspicious. At that moment, I was convinced of my husband's affair with her. Moreover, it seemed that they had been dating without knowing that their children were classmates. Isn't it strange? "How do you know my husband's name if you're meeting for the first time?" Alex's mother was at a loss for words at my questioning. That is... Suddenly, John snapped at me to protect her. "Hey, Jennifer, what's your problem? That's rude to her, isn't it? She's the mother of our son's friend. You should show some respect." Alex woke up to the sound of John yelling, and then he pointed at John and said, "The man who comes to our house." "A man who comes to our house?" The hospital room fell silent. Alex's mother tried to cover up his remark in a hurry. "Whoa, hold on, Alex. What are you talking about? Are you mistaking him for someone else?" Perplexed, Alex continues. "No, I'm not mistaken. Dad, could you lend me your tablet?" Alex receives the tablet from his father, and with practiced ease, he shows a certain image. "Look, this." The image displayed is of a toy train set in Alex's room that he had assembled himself. The toy train set is a product sold by a toy company. "What's this? Isn't it the toy set that Alex usually plays with?" To his mother's puzzled question, Alex points to a figure in the background of the toy train set. See this man? I remember him because I look at this photo from time to time." Upon closer inspection, the image captured the living room in the background of Alex's room, where a man, John, was seen chatting amiably with Alex's mother. "With this, you can't dodge the truth anymore," I muttered, giving them a hard stare. Alex's father, too, was trembling with anger. He raised his voice at his wife. "You've been inviting your lover into our house while I'm at work? And look at the date. It's the day I was away on business, wasn't it?" I, too, was shocked when I saw the date. This date? Wasn't it the day John didn't come home because he was on a business trip? Don't tell me. You stayed over at Alex's house? That is... She said it was okay, so I just... John readily admitted his infidelity and shifted the blame onto Alex's mother. Hearing this, she hastily countered. "What? You're blaming me? It was you who said it's a waste of money to stay outside, wasn't it?" Alex's father put an end to the ugly argument. "Enough. Inviting your lover to stay in a house where there's a child? You're unfit to be a mother. You're utterly despicable. I disdain you from the bottom of my heart." At his words, John flinched, and he quickly tried to paint the lover as the villain. "Indeed, she's unfit to be a mother. At least I've never met her in front of Bobby. I care about my child, you know." "What? What's this guy talking about? He's joking, right?" I felt a surge of anger towards my husband. "Are you kidding me? Even though Bobby was unconscious, you didn't even try to come home, using work as an excuse." "No, that's not true. I mean, I rushed to the hospital, didn't I?" "That's because she decided to come back, isn't it? You didn't have the slightest intention of coming back until Alex's dad told her about our son's accident." I thought it would be okay even if I wasn't there at that time." "Whether it's okay or not, that's not the point. If you're a father, you should rush to your child's side when you hear they're unconscious, shouldn't you? Despite that, you prioritized your trip with your lover. You're not a father, or anything of the sort." "No matter what you think, I am Bobby's father. And what do you plan to do if Bobby doesn't wake up? Can you, a stay-at-home mom, keep paying the hospital bills? Without me, you and our son can't survive." Grr. It's frustrating, but I don't have the savings to keep paying these hospital bills. Do I have no choice but to turn a blind eye to John's infidelity for now? Just when I was about to give up, a frail voice came from the bed. "Mom?" When I turned around, Bobby had his eyes barely open. Bobby! I clung to my son. Bobby hugged me back tightly, then said, Even if Dad's not here, I'll be okay, because I'll protect you, Mom. Hearing Bobby's words, John was dumbfounded. Bobby, why would you say something like that? Then my son answered firmly, Because you're moving out, right, Dad? After Mom went to bed the other night, you said that on the phone, didn't you? On the phone? I heard you talking when I got up to go to the bathroom, Dad. You said I don't care about Jennifer at all. If it wasn't for the kids, I would leave right away and be with you. That's what you said, isn't it, Dad? That's... John's face went pale. So, I'll grant Dad's wish. I don't need to be your child anymore. I don't need a dad anymore. John was shocked at Bobby's words. On the other hand, I finally made up my mind after hearing what Bobby had said. I've made up my mind. Please, let's separate. As I told this to my husband, Alex's father handed me his business card. Jennifer, I'll help with your decision too. The business card he handed over had the title of a law firm's director printed on it. We should have plenty of evidence aside from this toy train photo. Leave the claim for alimony and child support to me. I'm planning to make a claim to my wife too, so it's like killing two birds with one stone. Upon hearing his words, Alex's mother started to panic. What? Wait! I haven't agreed to a divorce yet. I won't leave you. Then Alex's father said to her in a cold voice, Huh? You, who cheated, have no right to choose. A low-life mother who would cheat in front of her child doesn't deserve custody. If you still object, it'll go to court, you know. You're aware of my high success rate in court, right? And with such favorable conditions, there's no way I'd lose. Seemingly resigned, Alex's mother quickly consented to the divorce and agreed to pay the compensation. Seeing this, John also signed the pledge to pay alimony and child support to his wife. He must have realized that it was futile to go against the lawyer. After that, both our marriages ended in divorce. The now free Alex's mother and John started living together as planned. However, their living arrangement didn't go as planned. Once they started living together, they began suspecting each other of cheating with someone else, and their relationship began to sour. Tired of the relationship, John actually ended up cheating with another married woman. As always, John was sloppy and was easily caught by the woman's husband, who demanded compensation. Alex's mother also cheated with someone else, but her lover merely took advantage of her and then dumped her. Alex's mother, who had spent all her savings, and John, who was drowning in debt from paying compensation. They both seemed to be stuck together, blaming each other for their misfortunes. At this rate, they're clearly heading for financial ruin, but I don't feel sorry for them at all. They reaped what they sowed. It serves them right. As for me, thanks to Alex's father, I received more than enough alimony and child support, and now Bobby and I are living a peaceful life. Bobby got better without any problems and returned to his daily life. He still plays happily with Alex, just like before. I've become good friends with Alex's father, even more so than my mom friends, and we talk about everything. My only wish now is to continue living a happy life with Bobby, just the two of us.
Cheated on again, huh? Those harsh words were thrown at me by my best friend June as I sat despondently. Don't say again. But it is again. How many times now? You were cheated on the last time, and the time before that too, right? Indeed, I was the girl who kept getting cheated on by her boyfriend. Always I'd start dating because I was asked to, but in the end, I'd be cheated on and discarded. Perhaps it was my fickle nature, but if someone asked me to date them, I'd generally fall for them. So, getting cheated on was always incredibly painful. Why do I always get cheated on? Then June replied with a dumbfounded look, Well, you're so indifferent that it's no wonder you're cheated on. When I'm dating, I'm all excited, but I don't want people to know that or to show that I like the person I'm dating, so I always end up acting detached. You know, if you don't do something about it, your life will be nothing but work, right? At her words, I held my head in my hands. My name is Melissa. I'm a 29-year-old office worker. Yes, 29 years old. I want to tell my 21-year-old self, who at her birthday party was saying things like, I'll be married by the latter half of my 20s, and by the time I'm 30, I'll have 2 kids, about my current situation. I loved the boyfriend I was dating at the time and thought we would get married, but he cheated on me and dumped me a year later. I'm bored being with you. Bored? What are all the other girlfriends in the world like? No matter how many times I thought about it, I just didn't get it. After that, I had boyfriends who cheated on me. Some relationships didn't even last 3 months. Looking back, the boyfriend I dated when I was 20, with whom I was together for more than a year, was the longest relationship I had. June, who knew all about this and had been my best friend since high school, had met someone wonderful. Married at 27, now had a child, and was apparently going to have another one next year. The life I had imagined was June's. During this time, my coworkers were excitedly planning a blind date. A blind date, huh? I wondered if it was possible to find a good match in such a situation. Well, most of my colleagues were around the same age as me, so I understood their urgency, comrades. Then, one of them called out to me, Hey, Melissa, you should come too. I don't want to go on a blind date. But you just broke up with your boyfriend, right? She hit me where it hurts. I had only told my colleagues that I had broken up with my boyfriend. I didn't want it to get around the office that I was the girl who kept getting cheated on. With that thought, I unusually decided to participate in the blind date. Nevertheless, I didn't feel particularly enthusiastic. On the day of the blind date, I was dressed as usual, wearing my regular makeup, while the others in the group had put on nicer clothes and had done their makeup perfectly. So this is what a blind date is all about. I watched the scene as if it was someone else's business. The blind date was a stylish restaurant. When we arrived, 5 men were already seated. After ordering drinks and toasting, another man walked in. He was oddly disheveled, wearing a crumpled shirt and black-rimmed glasses. To put it kindly, he didn't seem suited for a blind date. Well, I'm not one to talk. After a while, a man approached me. I've fallen for you, Melissa. Let's exchange contact info. No matter how you looked at him, he seemed like a casual guy. As I hesitated, thinking that this was a bit too much, the man sat down next to me and tried to forcefully take my phone. Hey, could you please stop? I had to try to gently decline, but my words came out more stern than I had intended. Everyone was absorbed in their own conversations, paying no attention to me. Then suddenly, a man grabbed my arm. Don't push it. They won't like it. It was the man in the crumpled shirt who had arrived late. His name, apparently, was Ricky. I thanked him, and he pushed up his glasses, shook his head, and without a word, sat across from me. He had a hard-to-read demeanor. As the party started to wind down, people who had paired off started to leave, and those going to the after-party also left. In the end, it was just Ricky and me. We ended up walking together to the subway station, mostly in silence. Ricky seemed to be a quiet person. When I asked him where his stop was, it turned out to be the station next to mine. What a coincidence! Ricky pushed his glasses up and offered to walk me home, but his expression was so neutral that I could tell he was just being polite. I declined and got off the subway before him. The next day, my coworkers were excitedly discussing the previous night. Melissa, what happened with you and Mr. Crumpled Shirt? Mr. Crumpled Shirt, because his shirt was crumpled. Oh, Ricky. I inwardly rolled my eyes. Nothing happened. We were going in the same direction, so we just walked together. Well, with that outfit, it's no surprise, a co-worker chimed in, but I didn't particularly care. About a week later, while stopping by a bookstore to buy some comics on my way home from work, I ran into Ricky. Huh? We looked at each other. He lives at the next station, and this is the largest bookstore in the area. It's not surprising to bump into him. But still, what a coincidence. Plus, we'd picked up the same comic book. Huh? We realized this at the same moment. We both naturally said the same thing and laughed. Would you like to grab a bite? I had been thinking about picking up some prepared food at the nearby supermarket, so I readily accepted Ricky's invitation. And yes, Ricky was still Mr. Crumpled Shirt. I suggested a family restaurant, and we moved to a nearby location. Ricky, who hadn't said much during our previous encounter, was more talkative today. I found myself smiling often and realized he was both a good speaker and listener. When I told him this, Ricky pushed his glasses up and averted his gaze. Did I say something wrong? Since then, Ricky and I occasionally went out for meals or drinks. Ricky was the same age as me, worked at a startup, and enjoyed reading comics and going for drives. Information I hadn't known about him at the blind date suddenly came flooding in. Ricky was interesting, and we clicked. But then something started bothering me. Hey, Ricky, do you have a girlfriend? He pushed up his glasses and hastily responded, If I had one, I wouldn't be going on blind dates. I guess that makes sense, but I felt surprisingly relieved at his response. Wait, do I like Ricky? No, we're just friends. The day after going out for drinks with Ricky, my coworkers approached me. When did you two start dating? Huh? Their question made me blurt out a weird sound. What were they thinking about? You're dating Mr. Crumpled Shirt, aren't you? Oh, Ricky. No. We just happened to live nearby, and we bumped into each other and went for drinks, that's all. Upon hearing my words, my coworker started to laugh. Oh, okay, that makes sense. There's no way such a lame guy would be your boyfriend. One by one, they began making fun of Ricky's appearance. For some reason, I was seething. Before I knew it, I was shouting, Hey, it's not about looks. Ricky is a really great guy. My coworkers uncomfortably slinked back to their desks. That night, I called my best friend June and told her about it. You're totally in love with him, she said, laughing as she spoke up for my feelings. Indeed, I had come to this realization today at the office. I didn't like it when people made fun of him. Is it really like that? But confessing my feelings is terrifying. I don't care either way, but don't blame me if you regret it. With those words, I started leaning towards confessing. But is his income okay? His clothes are always ragged, aren't they? I knew he worked for a startup, but I didn't know about his earnings. But I knew, just by the fact that he was working, he was decent. Well, he seems to have a job, and compared to my unemployed ex-boyfriends... Yes, having had relationships with several people, just the fact that he was working made him seem like a fine person to me. Thinking about those unemployed guys who cheated, I can't forgive them. If you say so, Melissa, I can only tell you to go for it. With June's words, I decided to invite Ricky for a meal. For the first time, I invited Ricky to dinner on the weekend. It's the first time we would meet during the day. Then, because it was his day off, he suggested going for a drive instead. I remember him saying driving was one of his hobbies, so I agreed to let him pick me up in his car on the day. It felt almost like a date. And then the weekend arrived. I was waiting at the entrance of my apartment building when a white car pulled up. It was Ricky. I had imagined an old or compact and expensive-looking car, so I was surprised to see a car of considerable value. Oh, maybe he spends his small salary on his car. That's why he doesn't have money for clothes. I was satisfied with my own conclusions. The drive with Ricky was fun. Thanks to that, I almost forgot my main mission. I had completely forgotten until we reached my apartment. The moment he parked in front of my building, I turned to Ricky. "I like you. Please go out with me." Ricky pushed his glasses up and said, "Thank you." Then there was a silence. What does that mean? I want him to say something. Does he mean yes or no? I was staring at Ricky's face in surprise. Is this the pattern of a rejection? I said, "I'm sorry," lowered my head and got out of the car and dashed into the apartment building. Men are all the same. As I was soaking my pillow with tears, a message from Ricky arrived. The message read, "Please take care of me from now on." What? What was that silence earlier then? What was that about? With joy and anger mixing, I was thrown into a strange high. And so we started dating and decided to get married just before I turned 30. My co-workers ridiculed me endlessly. "Are you sure you're okay with a guy like that? Won't you struggle financially?" But I just wanted to be with the person I loved. He asked me to wait for a bit for the wedding ceremony, so we decided to register our marriage first and start looking for a new home soon. I want a child, and to prepare for that, I'm thinking we need to save money to some degree. Since I can't be too picky about our living arrangements for now, I suggested an apartment that looked good online for $900 a month. It's a bit small, but it's good enough, right? Oh, I wonder if the noise will echo if we have a kid and we're on the second floor. As I was looking at the property, I muttered these thoughts without even realizing it. Suddenly, Ricky said something astonishing. "Should we just buy a house then?" What? What on earth was he talking about? I didn't earn that much, did I? My mind raced through all the possibilities. Could it be some marriage scam, or was he planning to trick me into taking out a loan? No surprise my mind jumped there, given my history of being cheated on. But then Ricky said, "You think I'm poor, don't you, Melissa? You must assume I don't have any money since I spent it all on my car." His statement hit the nail on the head. But it didn't matter. I wanted to marry him. Overwhelmed by my feelings, I blurted out, "That's fine, I'll work. That's all we need, right? So let's buy a house." At this, Ricky burst into laughter, leaving me puzzled. I was utterly perplexed by the situation. "Hey, just so you know, I'm the CEO. Time froze for me in that moment. Seconds later, I found myself shouting in surprise, a sound so loud that I wanted to cover my own ears. "But your clothes, your belongings, they don't look expensive at all." I used to wear branded stuff, but I was surrounded by people attracted by my wealth. I don't like those who expect me to lavish them with money, and when they realize I won't, they turn on me. That's why I dress like this. Besides, I honestly lack a sense of fashion. Finally, I understood Ricky's perspective. So don't worry about anything. Will you marry me? Ricky pushed up his glasses as he asked this. I would later find out that this was his habit when he felt shy. A few months later, we had our wedding. The only reason we waited to have the wedding was because Ricky's grandmother was in the hospital with an injury and he wanted to wait until she was discharged. I laughed at my own assumption of marriage fraud. There was none of that. My co-workers, upon learning of Ricky's true identity, were envious. If I knew he was like this, I would have gone for him. Right? You'd never think that someone dressed so unfashionably would be a CEO. Melissa, you played your cards right. I wasn't sure if they were envious or mocking, but I put my foot down. I would have married him even if he were poor. It's about the person inside, not the money. Perhaps because of the comfort of being loved, I was able to respond with a bright smile. By the way, at our wedding, Ricky took off his usual black-rimmed glasses. He was astonishingly handsome, reminiscent of a movie star. He apparently wore the glasses because he didn't want to be told that he looked like that actor. June came to the wedding and congratulated us. Now I'm living just as Ricky suggested. I bought a house and continue to work. Ricky's fashion sense is a work in progress, but his attractive face and good physique make even inexpensive clothes look good on him. Lately, he's swapped his black-rimmed glasses for contact lenses or rimless glasses, and seems to be paying more attention to fashion. Although I've been cheated on in all my past relationships, I feel secure this time, because I truly love him. We naturally dote on and support each other. Let's build a happy family with Ricky. Forever.
Emily, I'm grabbing lunch with friends today, so can you watch the kids? After sending my husband Kevin off in the morning, my sister-in-law Rebecca popped in like clockwork. Rebecca, I'm working from home today too. Oh, come on. You're just working at home, right? Let me have a break as a mom. Alright, take care. With that, she left, leaving her kids behind. I sighed and welcomed the 3 kids into my home. My name is Emily. I am a 37-year-old working homemaker. I freelance as a graphic designer, primarily working from home. After pouring my soul into building my career, I realized I was already past my 20s. By the time I felt stable in my work, I was 35. I was happy doing what I loved and thought maybe marriage wasn't so necessary. That's when I met Kevin. Kevin is 1 year older than me at 38 and works for a company that designs posters and signs. We met because I took on a freelance project from his company and eventually we got married. Since I had lived alone for so long, I had some reservations about living with someone else. But life with the easygoing Kevin was comfortable. However, about 6 months into our peaceful married life, things changed. The trigger was my mother-in-law Margaret getting hospitalized. It wasn't a life-threatening illness, but her physical strength had declined. Worried about her, I started visiting my in-laws' house whenever I had time. Emily, you're busy with work too. Don't feel like you have to visit too often. Though, I'm glad when you do. Just don't push yourself. Margaret sounded genuinely concerned. No worries. I enjoyed chatting with you, Margaret. It's actually a refreshing change from working alone at home. I reassured her with a smile. Margaret is a delightful person, always cheerful and charming. Even though I'm younger than Kevin, I am not what society would consider a young daughter-in-law. I know my in-laws would probably be happier with a younger daughter-in-law, especially given that I'm married to their eldest son. So I was prepared for some pushback when I first introduced myself. However, to my surprise, my parents-in-law were incredibly welcoming. Margaret even said, "My son's not the most interesting guy, you know. I had almost given up on him ever getting married. Having a strong and wonderful woman like you as my daughter-in-law is a relief." Thanks to that, I've built a strong relationship with my in-laws. So, given that Margaret was ill, I had no reservations about visiting my in-laws' house this time around. but there was one issue. It was about Rebecca, my sister-in-law. Rebecca is Kevin's younger sister by 6 years, married 8 years ago, and has 3 kids. Living near the in-laws, Rebecca, as stay-at-home mom, seemed to be dropping her kids off almost daily, even after Margaret got sick. Having the grandkids around is great, and Rebecca needs a break too, but having them here this often is a bit much, especially when I'm not feeling well. Margaret mentioned one day. Rebecca, dropping off her kids, responded, "Well, wouldn't having kids around cheer you up? Just let them play around, it's fine." Rebecca, considering Margaret's condition, maybe you should hold off on leaving the kids here for a while. What? You don't understand how tough parenting is. How about Emily helps? You're here to assist mom anyway, right? Take care of the kids too while you're at it. Bye! Rebecca walked out, ignoring my suggestion. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I've spoiled her too much, and this is the result. You should get back to work. Don't worry about me." "No, but..." Looking at the kids racing around inside, I debated going back home, but eventually decided to stay until Rebecca returned. It was only 10 a.m., and Rebecca should be back by 3 or 5 p.m. at the latest, giving me enough time to cook dinner before Kevin comes home. However, Rebecca didn't return until after 7 p.m. "Sorry, I got a bit delayed." "Oh, Emily, you're still here. You must have a lot of free time. Bye." "Wait, Rebecca, how about saying thank you?" Margaret chided Rebecca, who was about to leave. "Oh, give me a break. I'm too old for lectures. Bye." Rebecca took the kids and left without a word of gratitude. Both Margaret and I stood there in disbelief. One day, Rebecca suddenly said, "Can you take the kids shopping for clothes? They grow up so fast. They need new clothes. I have a doctor's appointment today. I can't." Margaret looked bewildered at Rebecca's sudden request. "I don't see why you can't just reschedule your doctor's appointment. I need you to go shopping today. I'm meeting my mom friends tomorrow, and I don't want the kids looking shabby. Don't you feel sorry for them?" "Why can't you go yourself? Why do I have to go?" Even the usually gentle Margaret raised her voice. "I've got my own preparations to do. If you won't go, Mom, then maybe Emily can." Suddenly Rebecca turned to me, who had been silently observing. What? You're always pushing things onto Emily." "Fine, you go, Mom." In the end, Margaret gave in to Rebecca's stubbornness. And so, Margaret rescheduled her doctor's appointment and took the kids shopping. Days went on like this until Margaret finally broke down from exhaustion. I rushed to my in-laws' house when I heard the news. When I got there, Rebecca was already present. I thought she might be apologizing to Margaret, but she wasn't. When Margaret said, "Rebecca, I'm really tired. I don't think I can take care of your kids for a while," Rebecca exclaimed, "What? Seriously? You're just a little tired. I'm not asking you to take them anywhere, just watch them at home." She had the audacity to say that to Margaret, who lay weakly in bed. "Rebecca, that's too much." "What? Okay, fine. Why don't I just leave them with Emily from now on?" What? Exactly. You can relax, Mom, and I won't have to change my plans. Problem solved." Rebecca sounded as if she had come up with a brilliant idea. "No, I can't take care of them alone." Then I guess we have to rely on Mom. You pretend to care, but you won't actually do anything." Pressured by Rebecca, I reluctantly agreed to take on the task. The next day, Rebecca really did drop off the kids. What's more, she always came after Kevin had left for work, perhaps to avoid any confrontation. I couldn't discuss it with Kevin since I had already agreed to it. But taking care of 3 kids turned out to be more challenging than I had imagined. Not only did I have to prepare lunch, but I also had to manage their constant requests for snacks. The kids were running around, making it impossible for me to concentrate on my work. Since we live in an apartment, not like the spacious in-laws' house, I was always worried about receiving complaints from the neighbors. On this day, I had invited an old friend from art school over. I was still looking after Rebecca's kids, and it was hardly the right time to have someone over, but I needed to talk to someone. So I invited this friend who I've known for a decade. Looks pretty hectic, huh? My friend says as she watches the kids run around. Yeah, it does. Pouring coffee, I reply in a tired voice. What about Kevin? He doesn't know about this? Yeah, Rebecca avoids Kevin's lectures like the plague. She specifically chooses times when he's not home to drop off and pick up the kids. Besides, Kevin's been working late a lot recently. Wow, but you should talk to Kevin before it gets too much. Yeah, I should. I nod, appreciating my friend's concern. Then, as if life wasn't chaotic enough, I miss a work deadline. Worse, it's a project from Kevin's company. Emily not meeting a deadline? What's going on? I'm so sorry. Kevin did some maneuvering on his end. I am not blaming you. You look exhausted. Something must be up. Kevin speaks gently as I lower my head. I then tell him about Rebecca leaving her kids with us every day. I am worried she'll just dump the kids on us for Christmas and go out partying. I sigh. Really? I'm sorry I didn't notice. Does Daniel know about this? Daniel is Rebecca's husband. Oh, now that you mention it, I remember something. One day, Daniel came to pick up the kids. I gently asked if he could reduce the frequency of leaving the kids with us. All I got was a disinterested, in response. It was surprising considering Daniel's reputation as a straight-laced government worker. Thinking back, something else had been bothering me. For lunch, I couldn't keep serving only supermarket-bought lunches and frozen meals, so I'd been making simple homemade dishes, and I noticed that the kids would devour the food every single time. There are definitely some things to be concerned about. Maybe it's time to dig a little deeper. Hearing my thoughts, Kevin said as much, and then reached out to a certain individual. Christmas comes around. I'll be counting down the new year in Paris. Take care of my kids, will you? I get this sudden call from Rebecca while at my in-laws' house. Excuse me? Naturally, stays extend from Christmas to New Year's celebrations. It's a whole different ballgame compared to watching the kids for just half a day. That's asking a bit much. Emily, you live so freely. A little inconvenience is good for you. You should thank me for this precious experience. The kids will stay with you. Bye. Sorry, but I'll be at my parents' home. Even so, she vents at me and hangs up. I sigh and make a call. A few days later, what the heck happened? Explain. A furious Rebecca calls. Oh, Rebecca, welcome back. How was Paris? Who cares about that? Why are the kids you were supposed to be watching with Child Protective Services now? They're even investigating us. After hearing my story, Kevin reached out to a friend who works in the same office as Daniel to find out what's been going on with him recently. Apparently, Daniel had been boasting that they had a bit more room in their budget and could take an overseas trip for Christmas. So basically, you're saying you cut costs by leaving the kids with Margaret and me for meals and snacks? Who cares? That doesn't mean the kids should be taken by Child Protective Services. It's not just about that. Neglecting to provide proper meals for your kids is a form of abuse, so I contacted the appropriate authorities. What are you talking about? I heard it from the kids. I asked them casually when I noticed how eagerly they were eating the lunches I made. It turns out Rebecca and Daniel were only feeding the kids fast food and instant ramen. And instead of spending the saved money on the kids, they were using it for their own Christmas trip overseas, which is unacceptable. Daniel, you work for child services, right? Someone like you neglecting their kids. What's going to happen now? With that, I hung up the phone. Soon after, Child Protective Services conducted an investigation at Rebecca and Daniel's home. With the kids' consent, they were taken into the care of my parents-in-law. This became public, and Daniel was pushed into a less desirable job position, eventually resigning. He seemed to be having trouble finding another job, his bright from being a government worker getting in the way. Rebecca also started working part-time, but it didn't last. Both of them frequently asked Kevin and his parents for financial help, but they refused. Of course, Kevin and I did everything we could to support the kids, who have now grown attached to us and rejected any contact with Rebecca and Daniel. Seeing Rebecca and Daniel's retreating figures after the kids told them through the doorbell camera that they didn't want to see them made my heart lighter. Even the kids who I once thought were out of control have become much better behaved, showered with genuine love and affection from my parents-in-law. These days, I'm enjoying the lively, happy days that I hadn't anticipated.